I think that the country deserves to have a credible assessment of these claims and what the evidence shows. And the mechanism to try to force that is denying certification on the 6th.
The voice you just heard was that of lying Ted, Senator Ted Cruz, of course, lying to essentially plot to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. He was speaking to Fox News's Maria Bartiromo. In fact, Cruz also attempted to put his plan into action, and he was in fact one of the 11 senators who voted to deny the certification of Joe Biden right before the Capitol riots occurred. And that audio recording, by the way, is just a few days prior to January 6th. So in this Washington Post headline, Cruz, cadre of other GOP senators vow not to certify Biden win without probe of baseless voter fraud claims. Look, he knew that he was aiding and abetting the biggest lie, the lie that the election was stolen from Trump, that there was widespread voter fraud. And what blows my mind is just how far he was willing to go for a man who called his father a serial murderer and essentially called his wife ugly. We'll get to that in a minute, but John.
Yeah, I'm sure, again, as always, we can presume that he is sly and wily enough to have told himself, sure, it helps Trump, but it helps me because I'll be able to, I don't know, pass tax cuts for the rich, I don't know. Whatever, he'll be more influential because they'll be in charge, he'll be involved in choosing Supreme Court justices, things like that. I'm sure he's convinced himself that it will be helpful, especially if he is seen to be instrumental in implementing the plan, not just as one of the many Republican senators who would vote for it, but remember, he was one of the main senators actually holding up the certification of the vote. So it doesn't even necessarily matter what the outcome is if that allows him to show to the base that he's their guy. A guy that, like, I think their attachment to is more tenuous than it is for some others on the right. I think he is always desperate to convince them that he's one of their own.
I mean, it certainly shows. It's just incredible to me how this actually did go beyond attempting to pander to the base. Like, Cruz was having these like private conversations with Maria Bartiromo, like trying to put these thoughts into action. In fact, in the next clip, again, this is leaked audio, you're gonna hear Ted Cruz outlining step 2 of his plan to overturn the 2020 presidential election.
Who's deciding who gets inaugurated?
It would be the results of that commission and what they find. And if they found credible evidence of fraud that undermines confidence in the electoral results in any given state, they would report on that.
He admits it.
I like that you guys included Ari Melber in that. So that was on January 2nd, that audio recording, January 2nd, again, just a few days prior to the riots occurring on January 6th. He already knew that the Trump camp had challenged the election results dozens of times before federal judges and lost every single time because they didn't have a shred of evidence. He knew that. He
doesn't believe any of it.
No,
none of them do.
No, he does believe it though. He knew that there was no election fraud. He knew.
No, I mean he doesn't believe that there's election fraud. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, no, he doesn't believe. Yeah, exactly. But
no, it's just it's a power grab. That's all it is. And honestly, there's so much on a day-to-day basis that you see and experience over the last few years when it comes to politics that really does seem like worlds apart from the way politics used to be. But at least this one, not with the insurrection, that was new, but with their phony commission, the surface level of that is different than anything we've seen before. But remember what happened in 2000? They stole an election then. Like they did it with a different mechanism. They didn't do it through the Senate. They did it through the Supreme Court. But they'd already seen you can do that. And then, I know many of you are too young to even have experienced that time, but if you were there, you know how consequential that was. They stole it. They got their billions in tax cuts. They got their massive wars. They did all the damage that they did. They got their Patriot Act. They got their No Child Left Behind. They got all of that stuff. And none of it ever is taken back in any way. You just do the thing and then you move on. They stole a Supreme Court seat just a few years ago. You just do it and then you move on. They're going to do and move on anything that we allow them to do.
I always thought that if some authoritarian tried to basically become like the dictator of the country, there are so many narcissists and self-interested people on Capitol Hill who see themselves as the future president of the United States that they would prevent it from happening. And certainly someone like Ted Cruz, who has decided to run for president previously, wouldn't aid and abet someone trying to undermine our democratic process, right? Because he would hurt himself in doing that if he does in fact still have aspirations to the White House, for the White House.
Yeah, there's no guardrails, really none on the Democratic side, none on the Republican side. Like, he has every reason in the world to distrust Donald Trump, to personally hate Donald Trump, but that didn't stop him. Didn't stop Tucker Carlson from putting on a dog and pony show every single day as if he didn't hate the guy's guts. They know that it's in their financial interest, it's in their interest in terms of influence and power, and so they do it.
Now I'm gonna fast forward to his reaction to the reporting on this, because he thinks it's no big deal. Who cares? Who cares? You have me on tape conspiring to undermine the 2020 election. He says, this MSNBC clown is breathlessly reporting that I secretly said in a phone call the exact same thing I said on national television the next morning, and then said again on the Senate floor 4 days later. I don't know, John, is it exactly what he said?
I mean, look, I don't know. I'm not gonna go back and read the literal transcript. He did speak on the Senate floor. He did try to challenge the certification, but they also, even the senators who were doing that, were implying that it was like an important safeguard, not a necessary step along the way to produce the plausible deniability that lets them set up some sort of sham investigation that's gonna overinflate 2,000 mules or something and then throw the election to Donald Trump. That is not what he laid out on the floor.
No, that is certainly not what he laid out on the floor. And unfortunately for lying Ted, there was other audio that was leaked, separate audio that was leaked that showed what he actually thought about the possibility of the election being stolen from Donald Trump. Why don't we take a listen to that?
It can't just be, somebody tweeted this. It's got to be demonstrable facts that can be laid out with evidence, because that's what a court of law is going to look to, not just an allegation, but actual facts.
Not just an allegation, actual facts.
Yeah, the important thing there is that you saw November 7 on that video, and it was January 2nd on the other videos. It's the exact same thing as Kevin McCarthy a couple days after January 6 being like, dear God, we've gone to a place we never should have gone, and it's obviously Donald Trump's fault. And then a few days go by, a couple weeks go by, oh, we're cool with this? And I'm cool with it too. Yeah, in the immediate wake of the election, Ted Cruz knew that there was no evidence, and he thought, like so many people thought, well, Trump will eventually calm down, right? Except he didn't calm down.
Right.
It kept going for a couple of months, and then he thought, okay, I guess we're doing this. It's a political mob mentality.
It totally is. It totally is. And I just have to rewind to the early days of Trump's relationship with Ted Cruz, because you need to remember who Cruz has decided to aid and abet in his attempts to reverse the results of our democratic process. He and Donald Trump didn't get along in the beginning, and I can't imagine ever helping someone as abhorrent, as awful as Trump steal the election and remain in power. So I'm gonna skip ahead to Chris Cuomo probably experiencing the highlight of his career while interviewing Cruz about something that Trump had said to him about his own wife. Let's watch.
Watch guys like you stand by and stroke your beard like a wise man instead of telling the president to get on it when you have power.
How about tell your brother to get on it?
My brother will stand for his own record. Why don't you talk to the president the way you talk to my brother, Ted? You afraid of him? You think he'll smack you down at home?
Oh,
is that
yeah,
what it is?
I'm
like he's shutting you up in the primary?
Cuomos. You guys
not
are really
Cuomos.
tough.
I'm talking about the president. My brother's not the president. I'm talking about the president, the one who called you a liar, the one who said your wife was ugly. That guy, the guy now who you won't say anything about.
I recognize that you actually wonder why you don't have a lot of Republicans that want to come on your show.
I have more than any other show.
And yell at me and insult.
I'm not yelling at you. I'm raising my.
Oh my God, that was pretty good. I mean, he was totally right.
That was the best moment
he
CNN
read
has ever had.
in Ted Cruz, I can say anything. I can remind you of anything that he did, and you know what your mission is. And your mission is to get through this interview without angering Donald Trump. Oh, you can raise your voice to me, and that's fine, and that's fine. He's just reminding you of things that were actually said, buddy. Those things happened. You know, I understand that sometimes you go through days without a person yelling it out at you. And I know sometimes you're able to like lock eyes with your wife and it seems as if that's not what she's thinking about. She'll remember in a few minutes though, don't worry. God, that was a good appearance by Chris Cuomo. It's too bad about all the stuff.
Yeah, definitely too bad about all the stuff. But definitely a highlight in his career that I'll never forget.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.